I'm Laura, and I have been over the last year doing some surveys with 545 parents from creative industries, and working on analysing it and trying to bring together as coherently as possible their thoughts and feelings about being a parent in the creative industry. Why have I done it? Well, I have an 18-month-old son who is currently in the creche, and it's been a tough and amazing else. And so I came up with a solution, actually. I thought, why can't there be flexible childcare? I mean, we've all thought of it, really. But why can't there be a space, a community hub for artists to come together with free, truly flexible childcare on site? You know, it sounds like a pipe dream, but the starting journey was doing this survey just to check I wasn't mad and that there really were other people out there thinking in the same way. So, choose your own adventure. Do these books ring any bells to any of you? Well, for the uninitiated, these books are literally, you can choose your own adventure. You read a bit, and then you get to a point where you have to make a decision. You don't know the ramifications of that decision, but you either basically go on to have more grand adventures and have a wonderful time of it, or this book's available, and we'll take a read of it. It's called The Horror of High Rate. So to my mind, being a parent in the creative industry is a little bit like that. And at the moment, choosing to be a parent is a little bit like turning to the "oh, what a shame he died" page. Hence the format of my little presentation. So the respondents were largely saying that for them, becoming a parent was a little bit like having the industry's backs turned on, and they felt like they had become invisible. And for women, this is from pregnancy onwards. There were some silver linings though. Some people found that they could make it work somehow. And these are the ways that they found that they could make it work for themselves. So, for example, some people decided actually that this is fine. Being a mum or a dad is all I need right now, and I am family focused and I derive complete satisfaction from that. Career can wait or just stop, and that's fine. For other people, being a parent, they have to reach out to their communities, whether that's other parents or their peers, all their families if they're nearby, and that has enabled them to continue their careers, and in some cases it's even inspired career progression. The mental freedom that knowing you've got a support system leads beyond what they even thought they could do. Confidence. So this is something you might think that people in creative industries might have innately, and some people certainly do. And becoming a parent for some people has actually increased that. It's given them a stronger sense of self, a more positive outlook on their lives and their careers, a broader perspective on things, which has driven their career aspirations. And then, of course, there's the other side of that coin, where there are people who respond to the survey who have some endowed confidence, perhaps by professional status, or sometimes it's just financial. They have no need to be doing the work. So that leaves them with a bit more freedom than is otherwise the case. Acceptance and adaptability. So this pretty much speaks for itself. These are people who have gone, okay, this is going to be really hard. How can I make it work for me so that I can still be a creator? And so these are the people who have been inspired by having a family to set up their own companies or write their own plays in such a way that they can incorporate their family life, and it doesn't exclude them. What was really interesting about this for me was that this completely blows out of the water the slight attitude that becoming a parent means less commitment to work, because these people are taking on more responsibility, not only in their personal life by having a family, but in their professional life by taking on more work, which I think was a really positive thing about the survey. The final one, strong work ethic, speaks for itself as well. It's really people who, because they've got a family, it's given them greater incentive to work, and that's all there is to it. I'm going to hand you over to some actors here who are going to talk through some verbatins from the research to illustrate these 5 points.
Actor. Having children made me more confident in it. It also meant I became more selective
balance most of the time, but I've had to be brave and stand up for myself to achieve this. I was very lucky working several years ago with a choreographer who was completely unapologetic about having her babies in her rehearsal room. Without that visible mentor, I don't know if I'd have the courage to tell people I am continuing to work and I will be bringing my baby with me.
Writer. I was very nervous when I had to interview the head of the Young People's Mental Health Charity with son in tow. But the director was very positive and encouraging and commented specifically how good it was to see kids in a work environment and how healthy it was for kids' development.
Producer, director. Just last week I had a Skype meeting with an important venue and had my 5-month-old on screen with me. My baby was pretty grizzly and I had to move about quite a bit as we talked. Afterwards I got a lovely email from the CEO recapping our conversation and saying a big hello to the baby. Not the outcome I had expected.
Costume department. It made me forge ahead on my own, and now I work at home, juggling work and children. I'm on my own terms, I'm my own boss. Everyone says I'm a brilliant example by working hard at what I'm good at and making my job, by and large, fit my family. But I am working crazy hours.
Actor. I formed my own theatre company, and the hours worked were on a matriarchal pattern. Work rehearsal commences soon after the school run as possible and ends before school run. Work recommences in the evening between 7 and 11 p.m.
Theatre manager. We're a tiny company. We work around all our availability. The company's just accepted that I can't really do evenings. I feel I'd be unlikely to be able to work at the same level in the less understanding organisation. But I also catch up on work in the evenings, as does my partner, so I'm busy, and we're permanently happy. But I suspect that's true of many parents in any industry.
Thank you. There's a wonderful some great inspiring examples there, and I think I hope we can take heart from there. You can see that it can be possible. So 90% of the survey respondents said that becoming a parent had a marked impact on their career. Over 2/3 of those, unfortunately, were decidedly negative. So we'll move on to the dark side. Here we have curtains down. It's very dramatic, I can't just. And these are things that are really getting in people's way. So this is everybody knows absence of appropriate childcare. So actually the biggest problem here, by far, we all know it, is lack of flexibility. The untethered professions, as I like to call them, are just not catered for currently. So this is made worse by the fact that our industry tends to work quite last minute. It's very difficult to find childcare if you haven't already got it. But lots of people can't afford to have it full time for the possibility of work. Speculative childcare just is not affordable. So I've sort of covered affordability. The second one and the final point was on-site. This was the third issue. So it wasn't a big clamour for childcare on site. But the people that did ask for it was mainly people working in television and film whose long hours mean that some people are not getting to have an input in the upbringing of their children for 6 days out of 7. And that, to me, is really sad. So that's that one. Discrimination is another really big issue. And I got the impression that lots of people weren't aware they were being discriminated against. And lots of people weren't aware that lots of employers perhaps aren't aware of what discrimination actually means and when they're doing it. So I'm just going to give some examples using my wonderful Greek chorus here. For example, there was a sort of active or direct discrimination that people talked about. So for example, use my prompt sheet here. Overlooked or not at work, demoted or sidelined.
I was told I wouldn't be considered for a job as I have a child, and I'm therefore likely to be unreliable and leave the company in the lurch.
Dropped from representation.
My agent took me off her books because I had a second child.
Offered work, then had it removed.
due to being pregnant. Despite them knowing I was, they then changed their mind and decided it wouldn't work.
And then there's the more passive, and there were lots more, sadly, than that. But then, we've only got a few minutes. But passive, so sort of more covert. You're not quite sure whether it's discrimination or not, but it doesn't quite feel right. For example, bullying in the workplace. A prime example of this is people needing to leave on time to pick their children up from school.
It looked as if I wasn't pulling my weight. People without family commitments were praised for staying late.
Invisible barriers to progression. For example, dried up meetings, no meetings at all, or not being included in meetings, or an assumption of reduced commitment.
One director commented when he said I had not got the job, but it was between me and one other. It was only when I mentioned I had a baby. His response, "Oh well, you would never have been at rehearsal then."
And covert anti-family policies.
Even if they, male directors, don't act on this desire, they perceive the ideal actress as completely unattached. If she has a boyfriend, If she has a husband, harumph. If she has a child, harumph. More than one, forget it. As you can see, this is an issue for me. I no longer get acting work, and for many years I had a good career. I miss it grievously.
Thank you. The next issues kind of really get to the heart of it for me. Alienation. I expect a lot of you have had this sense of loneliness. There was a recent survey by Mumsnet that showed 1 in 4 women feel lonely after the birth of their child. And this is exacerbated, especially for people in a freelance career, where there's no defined career path. So maternity leave can feel indefinite. And because the industry currently is not terribly supportive or seemingly interested in getting people back to work, respondents are saying they just felt out of the loop and felt like they had become invisible. Financial insufficiency. Well, this speaks for itself. There's a massive childcare wage cost disparity, and I've probably gone into it, so I think I'll, in the interest of time, I'll move on. I suspect that will be covered a little bit by the panel. Exploitation and disillusion. This, for me, goes to the heart of what it means to be a creative. Often, it's a vocation. You're doing what you do because you love it, and you can't actually envisage yourself doing anything else. And that becomes problematic, I think, because it can be exploited. People will work for very little because it feels like, well, they're well to this. They need to work. And unfortunately, it's a vicious cycle because if you're being paid very little for what you do, for what you value hugely, it can seem like nobody else values what you do. So you become disillusioned with the industry as a whole. It doesn't seem to have a moral code for your situation. And then with yourself, you start to think, do you have no worth? So what are you doing?
Stage manager. When I tell past employers that I've left my career to have children because childcare is logistically and financially completely impossible, I'm met with resignation. Producers and managers now expect to lose stage management in their mid-30s to parenthood. There's no effort or expectation that that can change. They just move on to younger stage managers and lose people with years of experience.
Stage manager. The schedule's only put out on a Friday for the following week. Therefore, unless you have an au pair or a full-time nanny, you can't be organising childcare 2 days in advance.
Stage manager. There should be a concerted effort to explore job sharing, better wages, flexible hours, and change the hardwired expectations that we have to sacrifice every ounce of our being to our careers. Sure, lots of parents have children who stay at work, but they have family to help them out. We have none, so it falls to my husband and myself, and there's such a massive disparity between our wages that there's no question about who of us children stay at home?
Actor. I think there's an assumption that women who have children are somehow suddenly benign artists who have nothing further to offer the industry.
Producer. It would require a complete mind shift in the entire industry.
Actor. There is next to no support from the government for parents with children under 3. And what is most difficult is there's no value put on the work that mothers do at home. Society doesn't value our decision to look after our children. Somehow, staying at home with your children is a sign of weakness or lack of capacity to work. When in our industry, firstly, there's hardly any choice, and secondly, if there is a choice to stay at home, you're sort of exiled forever. Because when you wish to start again, you have to start from scratch.
Producer. There are not enough women, producers, writers, directors, artistic directors. This is both because of the lack of support for women after having children and lack of demand for their voices to be heard. Mothers are some of the most determined, empathetic, creative, fierce people in the workforce. Let's harness that power and make positive, long-lasting change, not just for ourselves, but for our children too. Yeah.
So what's the answer? I skipped this page a bit earlier. It's the safety page. Don't have children. I mean, really, is that the choice we're left with? So 16% of the survey respondents were childless. And of that 16%, a really small minority were happy to stay that way. The majority would like to have children at some point, and amongst those people, there was a lot of trepidation and a lot of optimism, which is great. Then there were also those who, one respondent called the involuntarily childless. So these are the people who've been trying to have children. Perhaps they've left it too late, perhaps it's just other difficulties, but they're having to go through IVF in order to make it work, which brings its own massive weight. Then there were also some, these are some of the most moving statements for me. People who've been on the threshold of parenting, but not quite been able to make it.
I fell pregnant not that long ago. We both work in the industry, we do long days and evenings. We ended up terminating the pregnancy because with the jobs, the hours we work, the financial cost of childcare, me having to, at some point, leave an industry that I love and work hard for. The decision to do this has destroyed me. No one could tell me how to find childcare that would not cost us a fortune for when I return to work. I can have the family that we want and ensure the child gets parents.
So it's very clear we need to do something about this. And the respondents had some really imaginative way out of the labyrinth or the hard to get us childcare. And I'm going to move straight on because this is going to be covered at length by the time, but there it all is. Second one, revolutionise project management. Okay, this is also going to be covered by the panel. I'm just going to chuck in a few stats. 22% of the survey respondents said that their career had either come to a complete halt or they had to leave the industry. These exit figures were really interesting for me because the survey was called Childcare in Creative Industries. You would not expect to get people who already left. The fact that we did it, there was 22%, suggests that it's a much, much bigger issue than the survey was able to capture. 74% of people had to turn down work because they're a parent.
It was really hard to turn down a West End job, but the money wasn't good enough to justify an evening nanny for my son. I would not be earning almost anything after childcare and tax. And anyway, it was impossible to find
late notice. To put a child in a nursery, you have to sign up in advance.
Actor, stop casting directors and producers from arranging castings with virtually no notice. I have to turn down so many meetings or move mountains to get childcare at short notice.
Producer, the industry works on being last minute. It is long, unflexible hours and have to be flexible.
So exciting. Actor, I was made to feel guilty. And they put pressure on me just to leave my child on any random person, which I refused to do.
Director, having been a breastfeeding mother, you need to be able to take your children with you. The industry has got to get used to that being okay. It absolutely is in my rehearsal room.
Actor, no doubt, pressures in theatres will change our working environment.
Thank you. So some of the suggestions for how we can make this better are flexible common sense scheduling. This will involve communication so that we can find ways of making it work for everybody concerned. So we're not just making demands here, it's just about conversation. Minimise the last minute, we've done that. Job shares, part-time work. So this was largely from people, TV crews, technical side of theatre. There's not a lot of part-time work out there. Also, actors are suggesting that it could be possible to do role shares. Why not? You know, the Musicians Union managed to death out. Why can't we try that too? Okay, and on to the last one. So respondents were also talking about a wider perspective. This is not just about our industry. This is about our culture and what we might need to start doing in order to make things change on a deeper level. So, to include all, we have to hear all. So this is what it's not just about parents. We're not an isolated group. We need to work together to be able to understand how we can work well. Illuminate the invisible voices. So this is about the stories that we're a bit frightened of as a culture. The stories about bereavement, stories about special needs maybe, stories, all the diversity elements that we're sort of a bit tiptoeing around at the moment. If we could see them on our screens and on our theatres, I think we'll start being a little less frightened as a society about them. We'll be able to understand them better and become more supportive. Creative thinking about employing parents. If it needs to be having children in the workplace, then let's try and find some ways of making that work too. Adapt to individuals, not stereotypes. So, for example, mothers there's an assumption that all they're going to want to do is look after their children, and that may well be the case. There's no value judgment here. Society could do with supporting them a bit more with that choice and not suggesting, like Georgia Osborne did recently, that it's a lifestyle choice. Like it's like choosing to be a vegetarian or something. But if mothers do want to work, then we need to work towards their specific situation, whether it's because they've got a disabled child, or whether it's because this is fathers too, it's not just mothers, of course. If it's because they, 6 months, just desperately need to do some work, then great. If it's a financial thing or if it's a personal thing, we just need to listen to exactly what individuals are able to do. How do we learn better life-work understanding? I don't know. I'm rubbish at it. Perhaps someone can tell me the answer. Okay, so my thoughts on this are, I've already said it a couple of times, that we will make change so much more resilient if it involves everybody, if it's a big conversation that we have together. And I think that, well, personally, for 11th Hour, my company, our aim will be to start talking to other industries. How do they make it work? And what does truly flexible childcare mean? And how can we start to put it on the agenda? And where people's concerned, well, I think they're the first step on this ladder towards bringing together a community. And here they are. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.